for the coronavirus. I usually like to start with some Vedic. Here's my contact information, by the way, for those of you who need it. I usually like to start by doing some Vedic chanting, and that'll kind of settles the energy. So we'll do some chanting. Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Vakritunda Mahakaya, Suryakoti Samaprapa, Nirvigyam Kurame Deva, Savakareshi Sarvada, Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvinavatitamastru Ma Vivishai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Aditaye Samaye Mangulai Budaya Cha Guru Shukri Shini Vischara Have Ketave Namaha. I'll do one more chant here for the world here. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, welcome everybody. I'm Barry Rosen. I've been doing mundane astrology for about 32 years, and most of you know me because I've been doing more personal astrology and other forms of astrology, spiritual astrology. But with all the concerns in the world, I have to kind of go back to my roots, looking at world transits and mundane country charts and things like that to kind of help people move through the fear of the coronavirus. So that's what we want to do today. Let's just start out simply by saying, when do we think the bottom line is? We think this probably is going to run its course through the end of May into at the latest late June. And so it's not an indefinite thing, and obviously it will get worse before it gets better. One of the things we've talked about, even though Pluto is not talked about in Vedic astrology, it's a very real planet. It does have an influence on collective consciousness, and it does tend to, when it's afflicted, create mass hysteria. So on February 24th in the sidereal calendar, Pluto went into Capricorn. It was no longer kind of in the protection of Jupiter, and it was in Capricorn for the first time, and so it was connecting Saturn and Pluto. Now, Saturn and Pluto were actually conjunct in January, but Jupiter was kind of upholding and protecting them from kind of this mass hysteria. And now we have the Pluto-Saturn conjunction in Capricorn, and it's causing, it tends to create this kind of mass hysteria. Capricorn is one of the zodiacal signs connected with the base chakra, and Saturn and the base chakra are connected to survival. So it's no wonder that actually people are hoarding toilet paper, because it's kind of like a primal need in the base chakra. little humor here, but actually we there is this kind of primal fear in the world, and some of it we have to be real about. I have a lot of Saturn in my chart. I'm very real. I mean, our big concern for the world is that we don't want to tax the healthcare system, because if a lot of people get sick and flood the hospitals and there's not enough respirators and ICUs to take care of them, then, like the situation in Italy where people in the hallway, just kind of dying because there's not enough machines to hook them up to. We don't want to, so to prevent that, obviously, it has been wise to do the kind of the mass, the social distancing, and even though you may be in a low risk category, it's really great to kind of think of other people in your society. And the other thing that I wasn't aware of is that if the hospitals get flooded with coronavirus cases, then people who have serious problems, they have heart attacks or appendicitis, or they need urgent hospitalization, you're going to have trouble getting care. So this is why the mass quarantine is important, and we fully support it. Now, let's look at some timelines here, and I should have written these out for you, but I didn't have time. So Pluto is in sidereal Capricorn until June 29th. It's going to go, then it's going to retrograde into Sagittarius. We'll have a little bit more support from Jupiter then, although not as much as it has had in the past. So that's one of the first turning points. Now Saturn Saturn has a lot to do with suffering and disease, and Saturn is going to be particularly strong in May, between May 1st and May 21st, as it goes stationary direct on May the 10th. And Saturn retrograde tends to create more fear and intensity. So I think there's going to be some type of peak in May with the fear cycles with Saturn there. Saturn does continue retrograde until September 28th. And Saturn retrograde is more powerful to inflict kind of fear. Now, what's the bright side of Saturn? Saturn is a planet, it's very slow. It wants to move you into the present moment. When it creates illness, it wants you to slow down. It wants you to take time and play with your children, to smell the roses, to play with your pets. When people are now confined indoors, Saturn is telling you, slow down and take a look at, and so the world is kind of in rest mode. And I suppose that's a good thing considering the rapid pace of life that we're currently in. Now, Mars is going to afflict Saturn in transit on March 31st with a conjunction in Capricorn. That's going to be felt strongly between March 22nd and April 9th. It'll be about 5 degrees apart. Whenever you have Mars and Saturn together, it tends to create kind of anger and frustration, trying to move forward quickly, but Saturn wants you to slow down and stuff like that. So not a particularly good period for the virus. We also have Pluto squaring the Sun on April the 14th, which Pluto has a way of Saturn and Pluto conjunction, which we can talk about a little bit more in the broadcast, has a way of kind of creating draconian, moving your hands very strongly to force your situation. So Saturn has a lot to do with government. When it's afflicted by Pluto, it tends to be overpowering and trying to kind of force the issue. And so we're seeing that in a lot of states where the governors are kind of forcing people indoors, out of restaurants. On some level, obviously, we have to support that activity and get people separated. On another level, it's an example of Saturn-Pluto conjunction, draconian energy. Chances are, that will get worse. I mean, we could have, we certainly are going to get the National Guard called out in certain states where there are going to be problems. There could be even more forceful things happening, and that's just what happens with Saturn Pluto. So it's both the good and the bad side of government. The government's trying to protect us, and at the same time, it's kind of like overreaching its boundaries. Now, at the moment, we have to support what's happening with the quarantines and crowds of 10 or less, but it's, and the tendency maybe is to want to rebel, but we all have to take care of each other. We, even if you're in a low sickness category, you don't want to make an elderly person sick or pass it on to somebody else who makes an elderly person sick. It's a very virulent virus. The transits are also not very good because we have Mercury in Pisces April 8th to April 24th. And Mercury in Pisces tends to increase mental worry, gets the mental energy, and tends to intensify poor communication. So that's not what we need at the moment. Mercury in Pisces is usually a problem anyway, but when Mercury is in Pisces, just the mind gets more worried, more crazy. Saturn will be aspecting Mercury in a sextile aspect sometime probably around April 10th, 12th, somewhere in that time window. Increase mental worry. So you have to kind of watch your mind and pull back. There are a couple of good things happening in terms of other larger events happening that are connected to the virus. We have, again, Saturn's going to be in the same sign as Pluto until June 29th. Saturn-Pluto conjunctions tend to cause mass panics and hysteria. During the AIDS epidemic, 1981, 1982, 1983, and also the Spanish influenza epidemic, we also had Saturn-Pluto signature. So Saturn-Pluto are kind of they're slow-moving planets. I mean, even though they'll be separated by signs, they'll be in the same nakshatra, which are a Shadha. But at least we do feel like Pluto in Sagittarius is going to at least give us a little bit of a break, until next December when Pluto goes into Capricorn for good, and will be conjunct Saturn pretty closely between 10 degrees. But so we still have the Saturn-Pluto conjunction going on for about the next year, and we get a little bit of a break. Now, one of the big factors that's been causing these kind of mass fear and epidemics is the 18.5-year cycle of Rahu and Ketu. Ketu is in Mula Nakshatra, which is between 0 Sagittarius and 1320 Sagittarius, and Rahu is in Ardra Nakshatra until the middle of May. Ardra Nakshatra tends to cause deep suffering and tears. Mula Nakshatra tends to bring out kind of calamities, financial hardships. Last time we had Ketu in at about 7 degrees of Sagittarius, we had 9/11, and we had the global meltdown on the financial markets, and we had all the panicking that even though there were no more terrorist attacks, everybody was afraid to go on a plane or for fear of a terrorist attack. So sometimes there's just like hysteria, and it's necessary. It protects us. Saturn is doing its job protecting us. Now, on the positive side, what kind of good news do we have in the transit short term? We have Venus going into Taurus for 5 months until August 1st, starting on March 28th. This will add some comfort. It's usually good for Venus to be in its own sign. This certainly may also help a little bit support financial stuff. Venus in Taurus is usually better for the stock market, although we're not that hopeful for the stock market. We also have the Sun going into exaltation April 14th to May 14th. This tends to bring stronger leadership, and anybody who's felt like we've had weak leadership handling this crisis will finally get people kind of stepping up in a bigger way, and that's also going to help with Mars and Capricorn and stuff like that. So our hope is that warmer temperatures will kill the virus or prevent its spread. But the scientific studies on this aren't clear. Countries in Africa, which are already fairly warm, have a very low incidence of coronavirus, despite the fact that there are a lot of Chinese there. So that may be a hopeful sign. There are certain. I read one study that coronavirus may thrive in certain temperature ranges and certain humidity ranges, and certain cities may be more vulnerable as they warm up over the next couple of months. And cities kind of high on the list were places like London and St. Louis and things like that. So that can be an impact. But this virus is very virulent. We're not quite sure if it's going to get healed by weather. So we need to kind of understand some of the spiritual dimensions and how to kind of handle this virus. And we have to remember this is not the Andromeda strain. I mean, if you remember that 1972 Michael Crichton book, the whole planet is wiped out by some virus, and stuff like that. But current estimates are for 2 million people to be lost in the United States, which is horribly, horribly devastating. And yet we have to. It's not like 200 million people are going to die. So please keep it in perspective that we have to protect people. We have to protect our hospitals. But we shouldn't, think we're going to die. And certainly there are all kinds of things you can do to increase your immune system. One natural product that I like is zinc. Zinc. Anthony Williams, who's very knowledgeable about viruses, thinks that zinc is the number one thing to take for viruses. He also likes cat's claws as an herbal. I personally like colostrum, which is was produced in mother's milk to pass down immunity from mother to child. Symbiotics makes a good product. I'm sure all of you have been stocking up on natural things to support your immune system. Get lots of rest. Do all the things that the government tells you to do, and you can keep your immunity strong, and such. Sometimes, obviously meditation is very powerful, and yoga and breath work. They always help keep us calm. Taking calming herbal teas like chamomile are going to help. And on a spiritual level, you can do kinds of. The world needs more spiritual chanting now. Mrityunjaya mantra, many of you may know. You can look it up on YouTube. A very, very powerful mantra for number one mantra for health, and very good to chant for the world. So you can start doing that rather than watching CNN and building up the fear. I mean, that's one of the problems is we get caught up watching the media and they tend to exaggerate and spin more. I mean, they are informing us quite a bit, but the underlying tone has always been fear. And so we have to replace that with love and care for others and taking care of others. And we have to, do more meditation, more spiritual practice like Mrityunjaya mantra to kind of help out. We study the history of other viruses and epidemics. We're not seeing. The question is, again, the Saturn-Pluto signature, has been around with the Spanish influenza and the AIDS epidemic. Unfortunately, the AIDS epidemic never did really get cured. It got handled. We still have 74 million people impacted by AIDS. The Spanish influenza did take about 2 years to die out. And at that time, Ketu was in Ardra Nakshatra, within 3 degrees of Pluto, and Rahu was in Mula Nakshatra. And that, so again, we had another Ardra Nakshatra, Mula Nakshatra signature during the Spanish influenza. Future of China is certainly in jeopardy, not in terms of population control, but in terms of economic stability. China's chart, October 1st, 1949. I do have that here, but let's see if I can find it real quickly. So actually, I have a rectified chart, which is a little bit better. But China went into a Mercury Mahadasha in October. And Mercury's conjunct Ketu within 3 degrees. Now, it is exalted here. This Mercury period in the 9th house should be good for them, but Ketu is really kind of afflicting it in a horrible way. And Ketu has a tendency to create viruses. It's the planet that signifies viruses. And we're going to go into a Mercury Ketu period in 2022 into 2023. So I'm not sure where otherwise. We also note we've got Sadhisatik happening. We've got a moon about 10 degrees at Capricorn here, Capricorn rising chart. Saturn will go over the natal moon next year and then retrograde back toward it. So Sadhisati will intensify, but during, so I don't think China is out of the woods economically, and certainly their perception of the world is kind of coming to light. I mean, one of the challenges with Saturn, of course, with China is, of course, they're pirates, and they kind of been pirating all and stealing all kinds of technology and want to kind of take over the world. And Saturn's kind of the ready reckoner here, and I think it's kind of causing them, the rest of the world starting to look at that a little bit more. President Trump has stood up to them. And their piracy, and people, I think, are more aware of it, and it really is kind of a huge problem. And we wish them well. They certainly are, they become a major economic force in the world, and in fact, I think they impact 18% of the world economy. So we don't want to have China going down. We're all one family. We have to love our neighbors. We could talk a little bit more. People are always kind of worried about economics and the financial. I do specialize in financial economy, financial astrology, and kind of look at. We have to kind of look at what's happening as an economic transformation with Saturn, Pluto, and this whole thing. Basically, the bankers and the feds around the world have been kind of pumping false money into the system that has been inflating all kinds of things, including the stock market and real estate. and it's not totally based in reality. You can print money, eventually. We're in a horrible situation in the world with printing, with trillions of dollars. At the moment, the current economic rescue, everybody wants to run and print more money, distribute helicopter money, send you checks in the mail so that you'll be happy that your government's taking care of you. I'm not sure $1,000 that's proposed to every person will really kind of help that much. I certainly will be happy if it comes. But again, it's creating more debt. And again, we're printing money that we don't have, trying to rescue industries that we don't have. The stock market originally had cycle lows into June of this year and even into August of this year. And even before this crisis hit, we were aware of those, and the market was very kind of overdone. So the correction has been needed, and the question is, how low will it go? In 2000, the equivalent numbers for the 2009 low are actually around 2,000 to 2,300 on the S&P 500, which is approximately about. So we have at this recording, we've kind of held the 2,350 level on the S&P and are bouncing, but we don't see the end of this because it's getting worse in terms of we're closing more industries, we're closing restaurants, everything's closing. And this is, people aren't being, people will be able to buy online, but it's still kind of, there's tons of people are going to be out of work. So the situation going forward, I don't think it's the end of the world situation for the economy, because we do think the virus will be over at the latest by the end of June, and markets and workplaces and economies will recover. There certainly will probably be another level coming, but vaccines should be tested fully and usually take about 14 to 15 months to develop. So I'm a little scared if they suddenly rush a vaccine out that hasn't been tested. We saw that in 1976. We had the swine flu scare. President Ford was pushing people to take these swine flu vaccines. What happened was, many people were paralyzed, because the vaccines hadn't been tested fully. So you have to be careful if they do roll out a vaccine too quickly. Ultimately, hopefully, something will come to the rescue like that. I think the real rescue has to be we have to take better care of our immune system. Economically, when we've had Saturn Pluto happen in the world, we tend to get major economic resets. 1914, we had a Saturn-Pluto conjunction. We had the fall of the Russian monarchy and the rise of communist Russia. We also had the breakout of World War I, which and the slaying of Tsar was it Ferdinand, that led to World War I breaking out, which was really kind of a disastrous war. Saturn-Pluto opposition in 1929. 1931 brought the Depression. 1947, we had Saturn-Pluto conjunction. We had India and Pakistan separating into two separate countries. We had the Bretton Woods Agreement, which created the current monetary system that we have, which was really favored the U.S. dollar and really kind of led to the effulgence of the United States as a result. The problem with, so we have to think, and we also have every 20 years we have the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction, which tend to mark economic tops. We have the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction in December of 2021, but it's really kind of being felt. Saturn and Jupiter are going to be within 6 degrees of each other from March 29th to June 29th. Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions have marked, economic tops and retracements. We had 1980, we had an economic top, and we had a fall into 1982. In 2000, we had, the peak in the stock market and a fall into 2002, 2003. Every 20 years, we tend to get these kind of economic, where at least we go into recession with Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions. This time it may be a little bit bigger. We don't know. We really, with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, we have to think that we do need a global economic reset. That means the way the elites have been running the world and and getting, needs to change. I don't. It's going to get very complicated. I mean, we're just beginning part of this whole transition, which I think should go on 2 or 3 years with Saturn Pluto, and we may not really understand the full impact of it until it's completely over. Again, I think we have to take a spiritual perspective on this thing. Slow down, be in the moment, help other people, do your meditation, chant Mrityunjaya mantra, and be patient. Saturn wants you to slow down. I mean, it's possible that we could get more crazy things happening. What if I don't, during the 9/11 panic, they closed the markets because they were trying to prevent panic. It actually kind of worked. I think it got people to stop their panic and then allow people to come back and realize, the government had done enough steps to take control, and it restored some calm. There are a lot of other conspiracy theories floating around. They're all quite fascinating. I don't really have any proof of any of them, but I do know that Saturn-Pluto conjunction does create kind of a global economic and political reset. Everybody wants to know whether I think Trump will get reelected next year. Again, we still don't know who his opponent is, although it does seem to be Biden. I haven't done any extensive work on that. I do think whatever does happen is going to be very complicated, even if Trump were to get reelected. He does have a Rahu return happening, which means Rahu is going to go over his natal Rahu at 27 degrees. I'm not sure he's going to last, because we have too much kind of political and economic upheaval about to happen. And even if we get the virus under control by the end of June, I mean, the economic impact and the amount of money that we're borrowing to kind of put out and snuff out this economic crisis, you can't print money indefinitely and not, have eventual global inflation as a result. So world economics are going to be, quite messy still. The end is not near, and there's probably lots of other crazy things going to happen politically, economically. Lots of war cycles with Mars and Aries in September, and then going retrograde in Aries. So definitely an interesting year. There are some good things if you watched our year ahead video. There are a lot of good astrology things in September. Some of the best astrology we've seen ever, with 5 or 6 dignified planets. We're again reachable at appliedvedicastrology.com. Visit our website at appliedvedicastrology.com. We do put out blogs daily on under Barry Rosen, or Vedic astrology classes by Barry Rosen, Astro Yoga, spiritual astrology. So we're all over Facebook. We do. Those of you who don't know our work, we do teach a lot of Vedic astrology classes. We've written a number of books on finding your blind spots using Vedic astrology. Is on Amazon. We have a second edition out, which has a large chapter on financial astrology. It's on our website for $19.95, and it's also on Amazon in a hardback for $24.95. We also still are planning on speaking at the Sedona Vedic Astrology Conference, November 19th to the 22nd, and we probably by then it will happen, and so we'll all get to come together again. Visit our website. We do a lot of great work with teaching Vedic astrology. I do have courses on financial astrology, both personal financial astrology and Vedic financial astrology. So stay safe. Have a great, just go back to I'll end with another prayer. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mritshoma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Blessings, everybody. Stay safe. Take care of each other. Pray for the world, and have a great week.